That son of a bitch brought the war to us 2 years ago. Jesus, Alfred, count the dead. Thousands of people. What's next? Millions? He has the power to wipe out the entire human race, and if we believe there's even a 1% chance that he is our enemy, we have to take it as an absolute certainty. And we have to destroy him.
But he is not our enemy.
Not today. 20 years in Gotham, Alfred. We've seen what promises are worth. How many good guys are left? How many stayed that way?
It's me, Chris Byrne, and joining me, I have 3 guests. One of them is from my other podcast called Do You Expect Us to Talk? It's Mr. David Bond. How are you, sir?
Good evening. I am really noticing Becca's absence. This is bizarre.
Well, notice how I just went straight into about doing oh no, let me do that again. No, let me do that again.
Yeah, you did. You haven't asked us to cut anything so far, so you're clearly not Becca.
Well, it'll be me editing this time as well. And joining me as also other 2 other previous guests, it's Mr. Matthew Daly, or Matt Daly, as you probably like to be called, probably.
Yes, Matt's fine. Yeah, hello. Thank you for having me on.
And Mr. Robert Turnbull, how are you, sir?
I'm very good as all. Well, yeah. Let's say, I've seen Batman.
I think his boom will decline.
I'm as good as I can be.
Yeah. Okay. You were better before going in and watching Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Let's put it that way.
Weren't we all?
Yeah.
Weren't we all as a people? The main topic we will be talking about is indeed the new Zack Snyder blockbuster, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
With its record-breaking second week box office drop.
Yeah, I wonder about that.
It's almost like it's not very good.
Well,
people have watched it and told other people it's bad in some way.
Well, things that I kind of did that myself because a colleague at work asked me what they thought, and I was like, it's a bit of a mess. I'd go and watch Zootropolis if I was you. And they're like, really? I thought that was just for kids. No, trust me, it's better.
Well, my girlfriend and her son at the very same time were watching Kung Fu Panda 3, and all the way through it, I was thinking I'd have had a much better time in there. Kung Fu Panda 3. Man. When you are really jonesing for that, there's a problem.
No, Kung Fu 3 is excellent.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot recently, but I guess, but I'll just start because I know that Robert, for example, is a much bigger Superman fan than me. But just as a bit of background, as Chris already knows from our regular podcast, the first film I ever saw in the cinema was Superman 2. So I've got a big nostalgia for the Christopher Reeve Superman films. But at the same time, I do understand that not watching an awful lot of animated films over the last few years featuring Superman, not reading any of the comics, I'm quite open to a reinterpretation. And so I was fairly forgiving to Man of Steel. Even though it was hated by a lot of people, I was a lot kinder to it than a lot of people. So I went into this ready to be convinced. I really did go in as positive as you can be, given I don't really like the filmmaker and I'm not sure that he really got the essence of Superman.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are kind of hoping on the fact that Zack Snyder has actually, he might surprise us. He might have learnt his lessons. He's progressing as a filmmaker. Oh no, I think that was the problem. I think a lot of people are getting hopes of the fact that. I mean,
that was the only bit I wanted to get out, Chris, because I remember Robert from around the time of Man of Steel. We've been friends on Twitter for quite a while. I just want to start with, whilst I don't think it's a great film, I really don't. I'm actually kind of relatively on the side of positive about Man of Steel. Acknowledging all its faults, I kind of quite like it.
Okay, so
that's my background to the kicking I'm about to give this.
Well, okay, that's probably a good kick-off point. So, Matt, Robert, what your just feelings on the previous film, Man of Steel? How do you feel about going in?
Matt, do you want to go first so that there's some?
Yeah, shall I try, because I know how you're going to come in. And
but you know what? I'm gonna surprise.
He's going to come in bumbling and a bit awkward. He's going to rip open his shirt.
Okay, yeah. So Man of Steel. For those who don't know, I have a website which is kind of born out of a community of Superman fans. And Man of Steel, I was quite sympathetic towards because I very much saw it as kind of an attempt to, I guess, chase a more mainstream dollar, make him more relatable, even though I didn't necessarily agree with the need to do that. But I saw it very much as sort of day one Superman and trying to establish some kind of baseline for him. And I hoped for 3 years between the release of that movie and this one that they would sort of realize what Superman now needs to be after that day one thing. So I watched it with a lot of benefit of the doubt. I focused a lot on the good stuff, and I kind of but kind of managed to make my peace with the bad stuff in the hope that we were going to head towards something a little better. And I think that the opposite happened.
Okay.
Well, before we, I say, move on to Robert, because I want to hear a little bit about Man of Steel leading into this. But the first worry I had was every time I saw a trailer, Henry Cavill looked like he was constipated. and I was a little bit concerned, 'cause I just thought, hey, I've completely missed the point here. Light versus dark. Well, which one's meant to be light? So, I had concerns going in, but I was ready to like it, is all I'm saying.
Robert, what do you think make of Man of Steel? Because I actually don't know how you're feeling of Man of Steel, because I know obviously you're a big Christopher Reeve fan. Your avatar's Christopher Reeve, so kind of gives it away. But I wonder what you think it took of Man of Steel.
That's amazing. It's like literally, I think I found the first person who doesn't know my feelings on Man of Steel. That's quite.
Well, you know what? You might have told me years ago when it first came out, and I've just probably forgotten it. But yeah. For the sake of listeners, whoever comes across the internet.
I'm not going to dwell on Man of Steel too much.
No.
Because I basically really, really dislike it a lot. But I think it's almost it's weird actually now that we've got this Batman versus Superman. I almost feel more comfortable talking about the elements of Man of Steel that I don't hate. Because with Batman versus Superman, I absolutely hated that film. But with Man of Steel, it's like I don't like Man of Steel a lot.
It's like you appreciate the things that you actually gave you. For at least it had this. Like,
well, is it kind of like when somebody chops your leg off, you feel like toothache wasn't so bad?
No, you know what? It's almost a case of that there've always been elements of Man of Steel that I didn't hate. I always thought that, generally speaking, the casting was really good, and I always stood up for it as being one of Zack Snyder's best pieces of direction. Like as a director, as a filmmaker, I thought that mostly Man of Steel was one of the best pieces of artwork that he created. It looks fantastic, and it's well sort of structured in terms of his shot composition. It's just that the story is very weak and the characterization is poor, and the script is appalling, terrible. And then there are all the deviations that they take with the character. And I'll give it a little bit of slack and say that they were maybe trying to do something different, and that it's not just a case that I don't like what they tried to do different. I think that they failed in achieving what they were trying to do. But generally, I hated Man of Steel.
Yeah, I look at Man of Steel a bit more favourably than you do, Robert. But I kind of agree with everything you said, if that makes sense.
No, I get you.
It's like, yeah, one of my feelings about Man of Steel is I feel like the best thing about it was the score, and I think the score did majority of the heavy lifting in that film. Because Zack Snyder, he can make it look kind of like all right. I think he's kind of, well, I was going to say competent, but that's the wrong word. He's pretty vacant as a filmmaker. He can't convey like feeling and emotion. Well, at least I've not had that from a film that he's done. He's just done a lot of things that like, oh, that looks cool. And he's kind of one of those filmmakers. He's kind of like, yeah, we'll get all the visuals in, but
Yes,
There's
everything about him is, wouldn't it be awesome if? And you can hear in every interview he gives about this character and about this movie in particular, he is driven by, wouldn't it be awesome if I did this thing? And there doesn't seem to be any thought behind the consequences of that decision on the
That's
universe
not what
or the
you
character.
want Godfathering a universe.
Exactly.
You know, if he wanted to play, if you had somebody, if you think back to like the original Star Wars films, if you had somebody in the George Lucas exec producer role with Zack Snyder sort of almost under him as the director, then maybe.
Like an ideas man kind of thing. Like, it's like...
Yeah, well, just somebody delivering somebody else's vision, because I don't trust him to deliver his own. And I'm not convinced about his own either. This is not a cohesive story, and it doesn't move naturally from scene to scene. With the last word I would just say on Man of Steel is, we on our other podcast, we had Charlie Brigden on recently, actually talking about music and James Bond. It was actually nothing to do with Superman, but Man of Steel got a mention, and what I said then was, everybody who ever criticises the film, I agree with almost everything they ever say. Anybody who praises the film, I tend to agree with almost everything they ever say. And that's kind of the way I feel about the film in a nutshell. I don't have a problem Robert hates it, and I wouldn't have a problem someone else loves it at all.
Yeah, I kind of get what you mean. It's like you can see both, like you can see the both good points in it that it has, and you can see like the bad points it might have. My personal feeling with Man of Steel is that it's a film that it's nearly a great Superman film. It's nearly there. The only problem is it doesn't quite nail. Well, actually, no. I'd say it doesn't do the Superman justice as a character, and it's just it's kind of frustrating because it could have, if it just did a few things, it would have solved the problem. I think so. I've rewatched it not so long ago before watching Batman v Superman, and I feel if it just had just a few attempts for him to go and save some shit, if the actual feeling of the fact that no, he's there to kind of protect the people of Earth and do something, just a few little considerations when he's like having to fight with Zod, you know, it's like, yes, okay, he's having to fight. If all the damage that he's causing is Zod flinging him against buildings, okay, fine, we're not going to blame Superman for that, but you know, at least have him try and like cause less damage.
I find it totally numbing, Chris. That was my problem, because you had the big fight sequences, which, you know, with silly lines like "turn on the world engine," but you know, it went through all its action, destroyed the city, and I thought, thank God that's over. And then the dust cleared, and you thought, and he still had Zod to fight, and I was like, oh, all right, we got another 10 minutes of this, and that's not the way you should feel during a Superman film.
No. I think it's fair to say that as much as I dislike Man of Steel, the big difference between that film and VVV is that with Man of Steel, you can look at it and you can say, well, actually, this is an easy fix. You know, you can see the points that you could have made it maybe not necessarily, you know, my interpretation of Superman or what we've had before or what's in the comics, but you could have looked at that and said, this is this version of Superman. But there are those little moments that spoil it. So you come out of that film thinking, okay, that could have been fixed. That should have been a better film, but they spoiled it. But now we're going into Batman versus Superman. Maybe they will fix the mistakes they made with that previous film, but they don't. And not only do they not fix the mistakes they made previously with the Superman character,
they doubled that.
Batman versus Superman, it's beyond fixing. You can't walk out of that and say, this is how we could have fixed it.
No, I think that's the key, Robert, because with Man of Steel, one could sit and read your Twitter feed on it, look at your avatar and go, well, he's just not got the Superman he wanted there. Now, they might be right or wrong in saying that, but you could appreciate the film through that filter. I struggle with any defense of the film we're about to talk about.
Okay.
I do. Completely. There's no defense.
Okay, well, without further ado, I mean, like, my first initial thought was when they announced that what they were going to do with Man of Steel 2, which is essentially Batman v Superman. I thought, no, too soon bringing in Batman, too soon, you know, you need to establish Superman first. But then I was like, okay, well, let's see what they can do. And then things just escalated. And then it kind of came to a point where I was like, you know what? I really want to see this film just because either A, it's going to be like quite an interesting watch to see how they're going to like tackle this, and B, it might be the most glorious car crash ever. And I think we kind of got a mixture of the both. I think. So, guys, what do you think of? Even though I can kind of tell everyone hates it.
You still want the nutshell review from each of us, yeah.
Yeah. Just to kick things off, let's go.
I mean, mine's going to be a coconut, but we'll go for the nutshell.
Yeah. Can we start with Robert, just to make myself and Matt completely superfluous?
Okay.
Because he's going to say everything we think. But carry on, Robert.
Would you like me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
How much time do we have?
About an hour, so go.
Okay, right, yeah. So just switch off for an hour and I'll be back. I mean, it's horrific. I mean, okay, going back to when it was announced, and the way they announced it, that was the immediate red flag for me, because it was incredibly obvious that they were going down the kind of the Dark Knight Returns angle. Not necessarily an adaptation, but they announced this by reading the famous quote of, you know, in all your years, Clark, remember that I'm the one who beat you, blah 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 blah. So you already know that this
we know the outcome. We know what happens now.
Well, what it tells you though is instantly that the filmmakers are coming at this with such a toxic attitude. They're taking inspiration from a Batman story written by somebody who hates Superman. So instantly, that you know that this is the angle that these filmmakers are coming at.
Did Frank Miller hate Superman?
Sorry?
Did Frank Miller hate
I
Superman?
think Frank Miller hates everybody.
Okay,
Frank Miller hates everyone, but Superman in particular. I mean, that's a big. But we're sort of digressing.
Frank Miller himself is a misanthrope, and that doesn't suit itself to Superman's story.
Well, yeah, exactly. You don't want to go down any road that has sort of Frank Miller, and especially not in his weird Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
Image he's gone on now. I mean, the guy's a washed up joke of what he used to be. But
I'm not like a big comic book fan, so I'm this is kind of news to me. This is like, oh, right, so I say big comic book fan.
I'll talk about it from the other side when it gets to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know the Dark Knight Returns quite well.
Yeah. Sorry, continue, Robert.
But sorry, yeah, we're digressing. But that kind of tells you the angle that the filmmakers are coming at it. Which for me was a red flag, if you like. I should point out, I kept trailer blind on this one. I didn't watch any trailers before the film, as much as I sort of had my misgivings about it. I didn't see anything really, other than the odd sort of little bit of footage here or there on TV and stuff. So I went in really, really blind, footage-wise.
Well, all you missed was, I mean, pretty much, I think the final trailer pretty much revealed everything that was going to happen.
The final trailer was one of the worst examples you'll ever see of that.
Yeah, the only thing it revealed is that the Superman doesn't die, which, given the fact that Doomsday's in it, isn't that much of a surprise. By the way, guys, spoilers. I just suddenly remembered I'm not even saying anything about spoilers, but I'll plaster it on the post no matter what. Anyway, so go on, Robert, continue.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we're talking about our sort of like kicking off with our nutshell reviews of it, but you can't nutshell this one. It's like it's a terrible film from start to finish. It's discordant. It's disrespectful to the characters and the source material. It's illogical. The dialogue is appalling. The music is terrible. Even the style and the visual flair that Man of Steel had is non-existent. It doesn't exist there anymore at all. And it's like it's terrified of using any kind of Superman imagery except for two things. It uses the red eyes, and it uses Superman floating in his standing position, which is basically, you only really get those when Superman is angry. Those are the only two pieces of imagery that this film uses. Whereas with Batman, it's overloading you with this kind of like souped up cocaine taking version of all the Batman imagery. And I can't even describe how appalling this film is. It's just shit. I mean, it's literally shit.
Is it Batman and Robin shit?
No, well, you see, this is the difference, isn't it? Because at least Batman and Robin has a coherent A, B, C, D, E, F, G plot. I mean, it's stupid and it's terrible, and it's full of puns which aren't even puns. But at least it goes 1, 2, 3, 4.
It has a clear narrative.
But you know what I think is very interesting, though, and this is a digression, but I think it's worth talking about since you bring up Batman and Robin, is that the sort of the Nolan Batman movie was a reaction to Batman and Robin, because we get Burton's movies and they bring this whole new style, and it's kind of like dark and it's cool and it's twisty and it's very Burton, and then they kind of descend into a point where they become so weird and stylized through Schumacher's movies that people reject it. And so we then have this reflip and we get the Nolan movies. And I feel as if what we've got with Batman versus Superman, that's kind of like the same thing has happened, only the other side. It's gone down this bizarre.
It's like, yeah, people like the Nolan film, so let's do that to Superman. Kind of thing.
But it's the fact that they've gone to such extremes of it, and we've now hit like Batman versus Superman is if you want, it's the Nolan equivalent of Batman and Robin, and I think it's a matter of time. I mean, they're going to they've got a slate of movies to get through, but I think it's only a matter of time before these films then react to that in the same way that they did when Nolan was brought in for Batman.
Sorry to interrupt, but Suicide Squad is already undergoing reshoots to lighten its tone.
It's not going to stop it being awful, but it is. I mean, that's, you can see that they're, and obviously Warner Brothers are having this panic. They don't know what to do because everyone's reacted badly to this film. So they're trying to make Suicide Squad more fun, but also everyone's reacted so positively to Deadpool, and Warner Brothers are just stuck in the middle with no idea how to create a film that ticks all these boxes.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is blatantly obvious. Just stay true to the actual original source material, because that's why everyone loves Marvel so much. And it's like these characters have stood the test of time because of the characters of who they are. But the reason why Marvel have done so well is that they've kind of retained some sort of loyalty to those characters and justify them on screen. And even though it's not, then yes, there's changes here and there to that, but it's not like offensive to the comic reader anime, and it's more palatable to general audiences. This time around, they've kind of we don't know. They're trying to we kind of want to do something different to Marvel, but we kind of want to do the same. So
they don't know what they're doing. This is the problem. It's important to sort of stress. It's a balance. I mean, the thing about Marvel is that they're very true to the source material. In their essence and in their core, but of course they're not they're not slavish to it, and I think that
that's key to me. I mean, like if you
completely,
it's like I would be completely defending this film if even with all its like misforgivings with like in terms of like all the portray of Lex Luthor or like the plot, the facts of the mess. If I watch this and get the general feeling, yes, that is Batman, yes, that is Superman, I'll be like, fine, yeah, good, that's done what it needs to do. And this is where it's falling down. It's not portraying those characters the way they need to be portrayed, or the way that is. I struggle to even think that they actually are really well drawn out characters. Really, they're not even like, oh, let's take these characters and let's do something different with them. They're not even well established in that sense. It's like it's like the film kind of like is relying on like the audience knowing about. Well, it's like kind of relying on like everyone know. Well, you all know about Bruce Wayne. You all know about Batman. You all know about Superman, right? Don't you? But like we'll just throw in these sort of things and assume that you know this.
Still going to say Bruce Wayne's parents getting
I
killed
was just
again.
thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Like, still throw that in at the beginning.
But the thing is that that is probably because like Schneider had a really good idea for an opening. Oh yeah, but it'll be cool. It'll be really cool to have like this opening thing, because what would be cool, it'll tie up with the whole Martha thing later on, because no one's noticed that before.
Don't even. Actually, something that struck me, really irritated me with the fact that they redo the Bruce's parents. It's like, for God's sake. But the other thing that really irritated me was that, and it's so Snyder and this kind of like this essence of kind of toxic masculinity that's built up around Batman these days, is that in Snyder's version of the Prime Alley scene,
I know where you're going with this.
Jonathan Wayne, he basically
Throws
leaps
the
at
first
the guy.
punch. Yeah,
throws the first punch. It's like,
and they don't get shot at like mid-distance. She gets a gun under her pearls, right in her face. It's quite obnoxious. It really is.
It's hideous. It's grotesque. And I've always had problems with I've always had slight problems with Nolan's crime alley scene for very different reasons. But at least in his movie, because I should stress, I'm not a big fan of Nolan's Batman movies.
Yes,
but at least
in his,
in his crime alley scene, Jonathan Wayne. Thomas Wayne. I was going to say Jonathan Kent. It's like I'm getting
no,
it
didn't sound right, but I couldn't tell how you'd got.
Well, it's easy. Martha Wayne,
Thomas.
Martha Kent.
It's Thomas, isn't it? Yeah, sorry.
His name was Jonathan. But it's like at least in the Nolan movie, he tries to deflect the situation. He offers the man money. He's non-confrontational. That's what makes the murder. It makes it even more unpleasant and horrific. Whereas in this film, it's just like Dean Morgan's just like, I'm going to take you down, buddy. And it's just...
Yeah.
It's just,
I suppose also, like, part of the sets of standard for Bruce as well, for, like, justice as well. It's like, his father clearly knew right and wrong, and he was, like, a man of the people and kind of wanted to, like, be diplomatic. So it kind of helps in the...
And also the Nolan version of it, like it or hate it, paints it. It's very much in keeping with the tragedy of poverty within Gotham,
yes,
and how it leads people into desperation. And Thomas understands that and spends his life working to try to alleviate people's suffering. So when he is confronted with somebody in desperation, it's almost like he just wants to talk to that man. He doesn't get time but he wants to. Whereas in this version, we've got, a nice picturesque punch.
Wouldn't it be cool if it looked like this?
Yep.
It's the way you can imagine he sketched out that shot.
Yeah.
He takes
care of his family.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually don't mind them showing the Wayne's murder. I don't mind that. There'll be plenty of people who went to the cinema.
I don't either.
We'll see it again.
And they'll think there'll be plenty of people who were in the cinema who thought that they were looking at the fusion of Nolan's Bat movies and Man of Steel universe, especially as Nolan's name was all over Man of Steel in the promotion.
And it's still on.
And I can see, and I think I know why. I think Snyder has put that in there because ultimately he's making a Batman movie, and Batman's arc is defined by two deaths. It's defined, or two events. It's defined by the death of his parents at the beginning, and then the death of Superman at the end. And how that the death of the Waynes spins him off onto this sort of monstrous, singular journey, and the death of Superman, when he says that really unearned line about I failed him in life, I won't fail him in death, and now instead of trying to kill meta-humans out of fear, I'm going to bring them together and form the Justice League. So that's why Snyder's put that in there. In his head, I'm not saying this is good, by the way, but I'm saying that in Snyder's head, and the reason that we know this is because he photographs the shell casing of the Joe Chill, presumably, I hope.
Please
bullet.
be Joe Chill, at least that ever read a comic book.
But that Joe Chill round hits the ground in almost exactly the same way that the cannon shell casing does at Superman's funeral. So I think Snyder is satisfied. Yeah, I think he's very satisfied that essentially this
in
is
slow
Batman
motion.
Movie. Yeah, and you know what? I can appreciate the way it was filmed, and had I seen it in another film, in another context, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. But that's what Snyder is saying. This, or saying to himself, if anything, this is a Batman movie, and I'm defining his arc from these two events, and how Batman comes out of them, and essentially goes from being an insane, branding psychopath into, hey, I'm now the guy that can found the Justice League. I mean, it doesn't make any fucking sense. It's completely unearned. The arc is bullshit. But that's why it's there.
I mean, at least I suppose there's ideas in here somewhere, which I think it just falls down for its execution. I think. I mean, if it accomplished that arc,
I can't point at anything where this film succeeds. That's the problem. I mean, Man of Steel, like I say, when you see Robert on Twitter telling us how much he disliked it, fully respect
with the greatest gif ever. I say,
fine, but you just go, well, yeah, okay, but it's at least plausible to say, well, maybe it just wasn't the interpretation you wanted. But this film is a failure on every single level, from opening scene to final scene, and the characterization is just abysmal. I'm more of a Batman fan than a Superman fan. The first flag in the trailer, aside from Henry Cavill's expression, was Batman stood there with a gun.
Oh, yeah.
What are they doing? That's not. Batman is not Donald Trump.
But that gun, ultimately, isn't that gun firing a bug? It's not an actual rifle, though, is it? Isn't it when he's
He does
tracking...
fight, yeah, but he does kill plenty of people in this film.
Oh, he kills people left and right.
I mean,
totally agree with that.
Yeah, he never shoots someone with a gun in what is reality, but he kills the shit out of people all the way through. He kills more people than Nolan's Batman killed, and he killed a lot.
He kills people directly, but in a dream sequence. I mean,
Well,
at one point he actually breaks the guy's neck.
He is directly killing people during this car chase.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's one of them kind of, I don't know, like, it is, and this is like one of the problems I have is the fact that it isn't well established. It's like, is this the normal for this Batman? Is this Batman killing people, or is it because
damaged?
Oh yeah, is it because like what Jeremy Irons Alfred says is like, oh, is he just like kind of like gone sick and twisted now because he's got this right rage against Superman, so he's kind of has a heighten or something. Or
there is a missing link with that Robin outfit, I think.
Could be. I mean, there is like an R-rated version.
But again, it's not cohesive storytelling.
Oh, an R-rated version of a Superman movie.
Yes.
What the fuck hell have I woken up in? Jesus, what's the next R-rated Mickey Mouse? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be.
Mickey versus Batman.
The whole film came across that I think he likes Batman but doesn't understand the character.
I don't think he really gets characters.
And he hates the Superman character.
I don't know. I just don't think he gets characters. I wouldn't like peg him as someone who like has that much.
There was a bit in the film, Chris, where Superman tries to warn off Batman. Consider this mercy. And every time he lands and every time he takes off, it's, at bullet speed, destroying the ground. I think, where is the grace in this character? Where is the warmth? Where is the...
Well, that's the thing he doesn't get.
Even in Superman 4, which was abysmal, you get, concern for people. And I see none of that in this.
Yeah, I mean, that is my number one concern is fact that... I mean, it's one of the things that Man of Steel failed to establish for me. But
again, like Matt says, you take it as a day one, and he's inexperienced, and da-da-da-da-da. But there's no character development. If anything, he's become more distant. He's become Dr. Manhattan.
It's like
worse.
Well, yeah.
Dr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan is exactly what he is. He is absolutely the way that when that bomb goes off and massacres everybody around him, instead of putting himself in a position of leadership, or basically being, as Superman should always be, essentially all of our big brother. Yeah. He mopes and he
buggers off.
Yeah, and he returns only.
He goes and has a wine to. I mean, you would expect the next scene for him to be on Mars, because he's he has completely disconnected. His powers have disconnected him from the human race, which is not the character.
He returns only because Lex Luthor pushes his girlfriend off the roof. And in the interim, he does nothing to comfort the people who are now terrified of him, or terrified of what it means, and even the people who are on his side. He does nothing for them at all. This Superman has no leadership, no warmth, and no agency even. He is sprung into action only when the people he absolutely loves are threatened. And given that Zack Snyder, since the movie's release, has openly dissed the notion of secret identities. And don't forget, in this movie, he has killed Clark Kent. Clark Kent can't come back.
He has. Yes,
he has killed Jimmy Olsen fucking as a lark.
Because that's funny.
By the way,
because we don't want any light relief. Don't put Jimmy Olsen in here.
Yeah, and make no mistake, Lois Lane is in the crosshairs. This film absolutely makes it clear that if Zack Snyder stays with his hand on the wheel of this thing, Lois Lane is next. Because I know what people are saying with the whole
Superman into a threat.
Yeah, I know this whole thing that where you say he hates Superman. And I get where that's coming from. I don't think it's actual hate itself. What I think it is that he likes the way Superman looks. He likes Superman's powers. And everything else, he doesn't understand, can't get his head around. He thinks the glasses thing is stupid.
In which case, then, his characters are basically skill sets.
Yes, exactly. And so that's why he is trashing everything that isn't that. So when Superman comes back to life, Zack Snyder now doesn't have to deal with the Clark Kent character. They could have had Clark Kent as missing, just like in the comic, he's found in the rubble or whatever, something cheesy. I don't give a shit if it's cheesy. I want the dual identity. Clark Kent is fundamental to Superman. It's an incredibly important part of what makes that character special. The way he takes a job, draws a salary, pays a mortgage, has a boss. These things are important. These are the things that everyone whines that Superman is unrelatable or Superman's too much of a god. Let's relate more to Batman. It's fucking bullshit. As Grant Morrison Wilson says, Superman is the one who does have a job, who wears a tie, who gets in trouble with his girlfriend. Batman doesn't have these things. Zack Snyder doesn't care, though, so he's killed Clark Kent. Clark Kent can't come back. There is no way to explain the return of that journalist, so he's gone. Jimmy Olsen, he doesn't even get through the door. Zack Snyder's bouncers have thrown him straight into the road and he's been run over. Lois Lane exists only to motivate Superman's powers to become even cooler as an evil warlord.
Because I know she's not everyone's taste, but there's been 2 or 3 Amy Adams performances. Amy Adams should have Oscars already. I think Amy Adams can be outstanding.
In my view, she is one of the greatest actors of her generation. And
I think
even
she is
in this
the best
movie,
actress of her generation. I do.
Yeah. And in this movie, she even does small things, shorthand things that an actress only as skilled as she can do. She loads scenes with emotion and agency that don't exist on the page and don't exist, in my view, in Zack Snyder's camera. She is superb in everything I've ever seen her in.
I think she's actually better in
hero in this movie. She's the only person who brings anything to it. She's working so hard against what she's been given to create something of depth. Yeah. She genuinely, came out of this. And it's and I loved a lot of the cast in this. I think a lot of the cast are very.
He's pretty good at casting generally.
Well, he cast
Lex Luthor in a minute.
Right.
But how hard is it to pick this? How hard is it to any one of us could sit with an issue of Empire and be like, wouldn't it be good if Lawrence Fishburne? It's not like he found these actors under a rock. It's not like finding Tom Hiddleston to play Loki or Chris Hemsworth. Cavill is probably the only unknown quantity prior to it. So Zack Snyder's good casting in that he went.
Because he nearly did it last time.
Sorry, say again.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to talk. Yeah, I was just saying that, and the other thing with Cavill is that last time round it was basically Cavill or Ralph.
Oh, that's right. So I think Cavill was actually offered the part at one point, even before Ralph.
I think
Cavill
Cavill
auditioned at the same time as Ralph for Superman Returns.
Yeah.
And the following year, because that was 2005, the following year the same year he screen tested for James Bond, so he was a known quantity.
Yeah, he was like he was literally like the second choice next to Craig. It was like
yes, he was. They very nearly went with the 22-year-old James Bond.
Yeah, it was one of those. Which is like it was, and also Batman as well. He nearly got the Batman Begins role. He was some sort of contention for that. So he's always the actor who nearly got that role.
Amy Adams is fantastic, and Lois Lane in this movie seems to be the only one that's bothered by all those deaths in the desert. She's the one that isn't satisfied. When she brings that up with him, he almost, in a polite Cavill-esque way.
I don't care.
He's pretty much like, whatever, I didn't kill them, just tell them that. But don't you care that all those people died, Soups? Doesn't it bother you? It's just because the only thing he cares about is that he saved his girlfriend.
Even in Superman 4, know the people.
Oh,
dreadful film, but it's fundamental.
Yeah.
And I think I was equally bothered by the fact, and please, we got to get onto Lex Luthor, but Batman, if Batman is going to live in a universe with messy humans, then frankly, his abilities and his mind is key. When did he become the dummy you wind up and point?
They're both stupid as fuck, both of them. Both of them in this movie are done.
Yes.
Like the world's greatest
and it's because...
detective.
Sorry, go on, Robert.
No, but it's like we have the world's greatest detective.
Yeah, he's meant to be Sherlock Holmes. Mentally.
And Superman he's the genius son of the greatest genius from a planet of geniuses. Yeah. Yet these two are just like walking around like dumb.
And it doesn't occur to either of them to say, "Can we just have a chat first?"
Well, there is a little bit like there is a little bit of like come on, Bruce, let's have a chat. Hit me. No, come on. Right, okay. Just start fighting.
Actually, that's the only single shot in the film that I thought had any merit was when Batman was punching Superman and the sound was slowly changing as Superman was like strengthening again.
Yeah.
Until it was doing nothing. I quite like that.
That was one of the very, very few.
That's 3.5. That's about 7 seconds in the film.
7 seconds. Batman looked shit, scared, terrified as well at that point.
Yeah.
Well, you would be, wouldn't you? Be like, oh fuck.
And I like the fact he kept the. I like the fact he kept the kryptonite spear nowhere near him. Let's be a few hundred yards away from that first.
Why did he just put some kryptonite in his suit?
Well, he needs to play devil's advocate because we all hate this movie. So I feel like one of us should try.
A kryptonite bullet.
But what I think he's trying to do, I think he's trying to get Superman to a point where he can stand over him and stab him without basically being eviscerated. So he has to draw him to that point and try and wear him down over
weaken him with the gas and that.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying that that's a reason. If Superman's going to sense a kryptonite spear straight away, and that's going to be a problem. And whereas if he tries to lure him down and grind him down, then get him weak to the point where he can be stabbed, and he's not going to just fly away or decapitate Batman with his heat vision.
Yeah, I mean, I think you are right. Actually, can I just say this? What I think was one of the fundamental flaws of this film, genuinely, because the whole argument of who would win Batman versus Superman, that whole thing, it goes on for ages and ages. And obviously, in reality, it's a stupid question because they're friends. You know, Batman and Superman, they have no reason to fight, really. But the problem that this film has is that one of the sort of the greatest answers to the question of who would win, Batman or Superman, is that Batman will always basically get the upper hand, as it were, because Superman is never prepared to go that final stretch. And we're not even talking about killing each other, but Superman will always allow Batman to win. And I don't mean in a throwing the fight kind of way, but I mean in that sense of
it's cognizance of his own abilities.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
They are not commensurate with fighting a human.
He just
Superman is like Superman is like an adult trying to control. Those fights should be like Superman trying to control a 7-year-old having a massive tantrum. Exactly. How do I contain this without hurting the 7-year-old?
But the problem this film has is that's sort of how the fight goes, basically, and sort of, you know, he's left there at the end basically just saying, you know, he's tired and he has been beaten down. He's just saying, look, please, you don't, you know, he's going to kill Martha. But the problem is that Zack Snyder in his universe across Man of Steel and this film has not created a comic book, a Christopher Reeve, a Dean Cain Superman. He's created a Superman who snaps people's necks. This Superman, thinking, right, it's either Batman or my mum, would go half a mile in the air and just obliterate Batman. And that's the problem. You've created a Superman that actually Batman could not beat.
And when he says
it's the idea that you can goad the pair of them. And the thing is, if you had even sold me Lex Luthor was a genius, I might have bought it. But he's a bit of a petulant twat. And he's just goaded two geniuses into having a smackdown that neither of them would ever have.
Well, okay, I mean...
in this scenario.
I mean, like, I don't really understand... I mean, like, okay... I don't hate Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. I think it gets more erratic as the film goes on.
Okay.
I can understand...
Sorry to interrupt, but seriously, develop that. Why?
I didn't hate it either.
No.
What is there not to hate about it?
Okay, I don't... Look, but I was going to say... But I won't disagree with anyone who did hate him, because I just think that he is that erratic. But what I saw was a different take on the character. Now, admittedly, I'm not well versed with the comic book, so any comic book fan will tell me that's not Lex Luthor in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, but
I would go fair enough, you know. But for me, in terms of what I understand Lex Luthor, it's like okay, it's vastly different, but it's a different take. It's a kind of interesting one. What I didn't get was what the whole point was of what he was doing. I mean, his mission is to destroy Superman. But for what?
He has no motivation.
Kind of purpose. I mean, there were a few moments.
At least in Man of Steel, I kind of knew why people were doing what they were doing.
Yeah. I think the things I struggled with. I mean, like there were things that I liked, like the rooftop scene. I think was if it was done like a straight up Lex Luthor, it probably would. I think the actual some of the things he says was like, oh, that would be pretty sweet, but because he starts going like,
I think during the publicity for this film, the first time I saw Eisenberg, he's in the trailer. Robert, go back and watch the trailers to see how this film was sold.
Why do I?
Watch them in order if you can as well, because like Chris says, it's only when you get to the last one it gives a ridiculous amount away. But the first time you see in the trailer, you see Eisenberg when he's at the party with Clark and Bruce, and I got an Edward Nygma vibe off that, which frankly I think everyone did. That's not just me. And I thought, well, in context, it probably won't be that bad, and it was. That was Edward Nygma.
I'll make the case. I'll make the case for Eisenberg here. All right. It's not going to be a good case, but I'm going to make it. I actually think his character and his performance was the only time when I got the sense that this movie wasn't embarrassed to be based on a comic book. Even though he's nothing like the comic book character himself, he felt like a comic book character.
They weren't frightened to go big.
Right. And so I felt like Eisenberg was the only one who was like, this is a comic book character, right? This is a comic book, this is for kids, and I'm gonna play it kind of broad. And there were moments when I found him quite sinister in his eyes, and there were things he put in the performance. I'm willing to bet, not that we'll ever know, I guess, but I'm willing to bet that there was an interesting, compelling, even quite scary and creepy version of that Eisenberg Luther within the premises what he presented.
What takes has he even taken?
Yeah.
It's just that I think that the again, and we can only second guess because the director, we have one director on this podcast, so I'll let Robert chime in. But you rely on a director to match the tone or to coach the right performance, the right pitch or whatever. To me, it felt like Eisenberg was abandoned by a director and was not reined in properly, or at least all that manic nervous energy. I can get behind a Luther like that. I can get behind a young tech genius with a chip on his shoulder who is prone to just explosive, kind of misogynistic and creepy. I can see a version of that in my head. We didn't get it, but I don't blame the actor for that. I actually think it was there somewhere in the numbers.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I would say it's not. I wouldn't put it all on Schneider's head. I would put some of that blame, or at least majority of the blame, on the writer Goya and who else wrote it?
Chris
Terrio, who wrote Argo.
Obviously I don't know who wrote what, but I just think in terms of like how the film was structured, and obviously some blame has to go on Schneider. Well, he should have stepped in and like, hang on, this isn't working, because any good director would go like, well, none of this makes any narrative sense. So I'm not saying he's completely guilt-free, but no character work is established. I think if there was a clear narrative, a clear intention with any of the characters, not just Luther, it would have come across so much better. It would have just been like, okay, well, this is a different take on the character. But it just comes across as like messy and very like, I don't get what this guy's doing. I don't get the reasoning other than the fact that like I get these egomaniac like Lex should be. You know, when he does his big speech at the end on the helipad, and he goes like, he says to Superman, "Now God bends to my will." I thought, yes, that's Lex, but like the whole reasoning and the whole like way it was structured is like, okay, what's he actually doing? What's he doing? Making Doomsday? Yeah. Is it like a backup plan, but it was doing it like?
I think one of the problems they have though is that, and I should stress that it's not Eisenberg's performance that annoys me, and I kind of agree with Matt. I could have watched that characterization if it were done in some other way, and I do feel like it's the only person in there who's maybe performed in a comic book movie. But the problem is that it's so far removed from Lex that it without any motivation behind it being removed from that it does become an irritating enigma performance. But the biggest thing for me in Luther's motivation, especially sort of contemporary Luther, is that he, although he is a villainous character, he uses underhand techniques in his business and his science and his empire. And on the surface, he's basically, he presents the businessman, but underneath he's this complete sort of sociopathic megalomaniac. His relationship with Superman is that he honestly, truly believes that he is protecting us from a dangerous force, almost in the way that Batman does in this movie. Although Batman is literally batshit crazy. And just running around like a maniac. It's like you need to feel that Luther believes, despite all of his own flaws and his own, shady doings, you want to feel that Luther believes that stopping Superman is the right thing to do.
He's kind of
Luther
jealous.
needs to believe himself to be a hero. No, it's not about jealousy. This is the point. It's not about the sort of the jealousy of Superman's power. It's about the desire to be the hero and to protect the world that he wants to own and control, but to protect it from Superman because he doesn't believe that anyone should have that level of power.
So essentially, like Bruce Wayne in this film is essentially is a better characterization of Lex Luthor than Lex Luthor is in this film.
He almost is. He almost
It's like,
is.
because it sounds like you're describing Donald Trump. It's like, well, he's basically like, yeah, well, he's Donald Trump. He's insane, and he's got these like really absurd ideals. And he's just, he generally believes it. It's.
Although Lex is usually cooler than Trump.
Yeah. He knows he's bold. He steals of it.
There's nothing wrong with a bald guy, all right? Let's not
exactly.
Let's not get into hate speech for bald dudes.
No.
Well, they're all equal.
No. It was a knock against Trump why he wears a toupee or whatever the fuck he wears on his head.
Bald guys are evil. Don't forget as well, when Superman comes back to life, he's going to have gorgeous long hair. If we stick with the comic book, so just remember that, guys.
Oh God! I'm so afraid of Justice League now. I'm so from a Superman.
Look, okay,
I'm so afraid of it.
Okay, I think we can just throw out any expectations or any kind of sort of okay. Well, this isn't going to be like the Justice League film that any comic book fans want. Don't think it's going to be Justice League fan film that anyone wants. I'm just looking forward. I'm just purely going to watch the next film as it's kind of like, alright, what the fuck's going to happen now? Okay, they're completely just different things happening now. It's not Batman.
The disconnection really just doubled down on the problems because
I don't think they can fix
a lot of the concern at the start was from the media and Twitter and social media in general. Was that Marvel started with Iron Man, who certainly wasn't an A-lister at that point, and built to a team up, and DC were going to do it the other way round, and there was a lot of concern about that. And because the characters we got were so disconnected from what you might expect, that just exacerbated the problem, that there was just Batman driving around not really behaving like Batman, or certainly behaving almost like a parody of Batman, and Superman not really resembling Superman. And then they go at it after an hour and a half of pretty much complete boredom. And I'm just so disconnected with it because not only have we not earned this through building up this version of the character in any way, particularly on Batman's side, but it isn't remotely versions of the characters we really recognise either. And so the whole film just sort of slid past in front of me with people wearing versions of sort of outfits that remind me of characters I know. And some characters having the names of characters I know, like Lex, but not resembling any version of them I recognise. And everything's set at night in pouring rain. And
it's so cliched, isn't it?
And it's just
so cliched. It's exactly the kind of movie we all feared was going to be made. And just sorry to interrupt. Just to go back to what we were saying about Frank Miller earlier. So yeah, I agree with Robert and everything he says about Frank Miller, but you can still admire those. I think the problem comes here that Warner Brothers considers itself to be a prestige studio. They consider this, you can't wander through the internet too long before you see them leaking stuff and releasing stuff, and their producers saying how we're going to do it filmmaker driven. We're a filmmaker driven studio. Every director's going to have their own vision and stuff, and they want to be the prestigious studio. That's why they went to Terrio. That's why they tried to get Affleck, and they're very open about the fact that they consider themselves kind of above what they look at Marvel being this kind of TV production, producer-led, serialized storytelling. And I think that they've looked at the comic books and they've all right, all that early Superman stuff, cheesy shit, don't want to see it, too bright, crap. Burn, same thing. But they've looked at the Dark Knight Returns and they've looked at Frank Miller's stuff, and they're like, well, this is, every comic book fan agrees that these are really good comics, and so this is what we should do. This is the prestigious version. We're the prestige studio. Yeah. We're going to do the prestigious version. And they've missed the fact that even Miller would say that the depiction of Superman in that, and even Batman to a degree, is almost kind of, parody is maybe too strong a word, but it's certainly a deliberate subversion of Superman.
It's almost an Elseworlds.
Yeah, exactly. And even Miller, I don't think thinks that Superman is really should be like that all the time. It's just the only way he could get into Superman.
Elseworlds, but something like Red Sun was closer to the characters.
Yeah, Red Sun, yeah, absolutely. So what they've done is and somehow they've missed the fact we can't seem to get too far without people saying Superman needs to be updated. It's too cheesy what Reeves did. It's too cheesy what George Reeves did. Dean Cain. Nobody wants to goody-goody anymore. There's actually no evidence that this is true. Even
Captain America.
Well, Captain America is evidence to the contrary. So what they've done is they said, okay, this guy's a patriotic symbol. He's a stooge for the government in sort of a shorthand way everyone sees Captain America cheesy. Marvel managed to sell Captain America to the world
All they
at
had
a time
to do,
when
all
America
they had to do
itself was never been less
plausibly-
popular.
They had to sell his name. They had to sort of retcon it a little bit to explain why he's wandering around in that uniform, calling himself Captain America. But once they'd addressed that, they could do the character as written, no problem at all.
But what they managed to do is they said, look, if this guy stands for all of those cheesy American ideals, but we don't want to just export a kind of propaganda icon for the rest of the world, because which of us wants to see that? We don't want the Independence Day.
Then acknowledges a creation of propaganda.
Right, but also it makes the government not as principled as himself. So he has to kind of turn on. That's what Winter Soldier did so well, is that Captain America started to stand for ideals that his own government
Winter
didn't.
Soldier was so good.
So he became an anti-establishment figure while still being a clean-cut. Look, and the only time, and I tweeted about this earlier, the only time in cinema history that Superman has married critical acclaim, box office, and fan satisfaction was with Chris Reeve. And when I see people talking about how, we can't do what we did in the 70s anymore and move on, in the 70s, it wasn't exactly a happy, clappy time either. And you have that scene on the roof.
That was all the President's Men, Network, etc. It wasn't a happy, clappy film environment.
Exactly right. And then you have that scene on the roof, that fantastic scene where he's being interviewed, and she tries to rip him apart for being so out of time. So he was out of time in 78.
You'll be going after every politician in Washington.
Every elected official in this country. And when he says, Lois, I never lie, and she's kind of laughing at this. And then, but then she finds herself realizing he's sincere. So why is everybody so convinced the world doesn't want that Superman anymore? We've never tried. I mean, Superman Returns, they did the kid thing, and Superman Returns has its faults and its plus points, but they felt like they had to put a twist on it. Here, they feel like they have to put a twist on it. Why do they think this? Why do they keep doubling down on this?
I think it's classic. Everyone tries to overthink everything in terms of when you want to make a hit and sure there's a hit. I think it's much more down to. I think the answer is a lot more simpler. Just tell a good story. Just tell have characters we believe in, and just tell a good story.
Yeah, don't give them a brand.
It's just as simple as that. It really is. I mean, you can do a different take and be a completely different film to what Superman, different story to what or character what Superman even is. But if it at heart, if it's a good story, we kind of go, oh, okay then.
And you've already got it inherent in the storyline. I mean, Man of Steel maybe less so, but here you have Batman in the film. You know what I mean? You can play contrasting ideologies off each other.
Yeah. That's nothing.
That's what I thought they were going to do. I thought
they didn't.
were going.
This is what I hope.
Yeah, I thought what they were going to do is they're going to do Dark Batman, and by necessity, just out of contrast, they were going to have cheesy Superman. Good Superman. Yeah, but no.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I was kind of fearing. Thought, no, we need another Superman to establish the fact that this is a guy who aspires hope. This is a guy who gives people that. I mean, there's going to be people who like. I mean, the interesting stuff that was in this film was the kind of the political kind of should we do we want a Superman? Do we want this kind of guy doing all this stuff? There were people dead set against him. There were people who loved him, but the film only just told me that. I didn't feel that. I didn't get a grasp of what that was.
Yeah. If you see his monument, look around you. Well, nothing in the film has told us that people feel this way. I
needed a sequel to Man of Steel to establish that before we start going into Batman. And the film, and that's my initial kind of no, this is too soon to do this whole Batman v Superman. Besides, Batman v Superman, stupid fucking title. Should just call it Dawn of Justice. Quite frankly,
I'm not. Yeah, I was going to say I'm not for either parts of that title.
But it's kind of what's the just call it Dawn of Justice. Everyone knows it's going to be
But Chris, calling it Dawn of Justice, Super Friend. Calling it Dawn of Justice just says. This is issue 1
This is a trailer.
Yeah, this is a trailer for what we want to do.
Yeah, but we all know that.
We're getting our asses kicked by Marvel.
But everyone knows that. I mean, at the end, spoiler, I always said it, but, when Superman dies, that has no, oh my god, they killed Superman. I was like, well,
I know.
We know he's coming.
We've hardly had any time with him. He's sleepwalked through this film.
There's going to be Justice League, there's going to be next film. Of course he's going to come back for that. So that has no emotional impact.
No emotional impact because the movie.
Because we just know, right? Okay, well, he's coming back. And the film
the movie
tells us
spends
that at the
most
end.
of-
It's the same music from the end of fucking Wrath of Khan.
I'd be interested to see why he's still alive.
I did actually think I'd heard. I did see snippets of other scores in this, definitely.
Yeah, I expect Batman to save all the souls I'd ever encountered in my travels.
This was about
His was the
human.
most. But the movie spends most of the time. The movie spends most of the time warning about how dangerous Superman might be and how half the world doesn't like him. So why would you do Death to Superman? I'll tell you why. Because wouldn't it be cool if? That's why. Because wouldn't it be cool if we had a Superman funeral? That's why.
And actually,
it makes
it's
no
almost
sense.
like they retcon. It's almost like they retconned it from that final shot. I think he thought that final shot was cool.
You know what?
Who could kill him? Doomsday? Because there's no logical reason for Doomsday.
You know what? I think personally, this is a case of they just try to just do too much. For my sins, I'll admit I've seen it for twice.
Yeah,
yes.
I've seen it twice too.
Yeah. But I
will
refuse
never
to.
watch it again.
Yes. But on second view, I kind of understood kind of where they were going, but again, it's just down to they just didn't establish. I think from the whole perspective of the death of Superman from the beginning of the film, where Bruce Wayne, everything's destroying with trauma. By the way, side note, first red flag I had was like, okay, well, how dumb is the Jack in Wayne Towers going like, Jack needs to get everyone out. Looks outside the window, everything's getting destroyed. Like, why aren't you evacuating already? Like, seriously,
so weird.
Yeah,
Such
that
a
was
weird
like,
scene.
it was like, oh right, boss says we've got to leave. It's like, hang on, why is everyone
No,
fucking up?
we've got a conference call in a minute.
that was instantly like, what the fuck? But okay, so obviously, you leave all this level of doubt for Superman throughout the film. Everyone's kind of like, oh, he's led all this destruction. Okay, fine, I get that, and I guess with him dying was a sense that Superman earned everyone's trust. Yeah, in the event of dying, I think that's what they had in their kind of minds, but they didn't establish that. They just didn't establish it.
The whole movie, it relies into, and I mean, to be honest, I think we've had quite a few movies like this recently, unfortunately. Films which rely on your prior knowledge of characters and don't earn the emotional beats. And this was absolutely the worst example.
Sorry, I was just saying Star Trek Into Darkness immediately leapt to mind.
Chris and I will get to Star Trek Into Darkness later this year.
Or Wrath of Khan 3, as
Rip it in the
Into Darkness, the Jurassic World, Genesis, Force Awakens. Creed is the only movie that I felt actually managed to earn it, which was basically trading off its this movie, this Batman, is another one, even worse than any of those.
I mean, the thing is that Creed did it because, like, okay, well, it's the same setup, so we all know where it's going. But it just
Creed is fucking awesome.
But it just gave us a different character, and we believe in those. Because
it wrote the new character, it made the new character an actual character that existed in his own world.
Yeah.
Before it brought in the Rocky thing, and then by the time that Rocky theme, spoilers for Creed. By the time that Rocky theme kicks in, and by the time we start to get into the kind of genre staples, the director, Coogler, is it? Yeah, Coogler,
Ryan Coogler,
has earned everything. He's earned our attention. He's earned our love for this character. And I care about the kid even more than I care about Sly, because they have somehow managed to build it properly with it. And that's what Man of Steel didn't do properly.
There's a relationship with them. There's a general relationship between Sly and Creed in that film. There's general sort of heart between the two.
That movie does its homework, and it doesn't take it for granted that you're just showing up to see Rocky 7.
And it has no. And I think the key point is it has no vanity. That film,
right?
With its characterization and all the rest of it, and it isn't just that it made Sly ill. The Rocky the character, all the way through, the characters are being informed by where the story's going. And if that requires them to be ill, sick, look bad, whatever, whereas this is all surface, wouldn't it be cool if? And this is how they must look. And their approach to skill sets.
And another good thing about Creed is you can walk into Creed without watching any of the Rocky films. You would get an idea. You know everything you need to know without being spoon fed to you. You know, it's literally it knows where it is. It knows its world. It sets everything up. You kind of get what Sly's relationship with his Creed's father was, and what kind of's gone on before, what you need to know, and that's it. You know, it might be a retread of Rocky, but and with
there you are. Versus Man, I have literally watched every Superman movie, cartoon, TV series, film reel. I've read practically every comic book. I mean, I've consumed a lot of Superman, and I had no fucking idea what was going on all the way through Batman vs Superman.
I think the point is Robert is like a very hardcore Superman fan. I am very less hardcore, but I would identify as a Batman fan. The first film I ever saw in the cinema was Superman 2. My first love, if you like, of the cinematically of the Christopher Reeve Superman films. And I've just told you I will never watch this film again.
My first film was, I remember, was Superman 4. So
I saw that in cinemas too.
This makes me pine for Superman 4. It makes me pine for Superman 4. That film is so bad, but I was sitting there in the cinema like, do you remember when he goes to address the UN? That was amazing.
Yeah,
when he announces the kid, when he goes and walks the kid through the Daily Planet, it's amazing. It made me pine for Superman 4.
Chris Reeve in Superman 4 is every bit as Superman and as perfect as he was in Superman 3, 2, and 1.
The only scene he struggles with in that film is where he says to Lex something like, "It's well known you hate children and animals," is it, or something? There is one scene in the film where even he can't save it.
I don't know. There's a scene where Superman or Clark is a complete dick to Lois Lane because it plays with the fact that she's forgotten his super identity and can kind of like just make her forget. With a super kiss, so he kind of just drops her off.
even when being made to do creepy things, Christopher Reeve is amazing as Superman. And look, I said in my review, Henry Cavill could be a great Superman. We don't know, like,
because he's not given the chance to. Yeah,
he's not given the chance to, and he's not so awesome like Christopher Reeve is. You know, even when making a movie as bad as Superman 4, they managed to avoid the mistake of making Superman do the kind of things that Cavill Superman has to do.
Like,
I listened to the Canon podcast on it, and Devon Faraci actually hit on it with Cavill. He just said he's too cold because a lot of people are now fearing he might end up getting James Bond, but he said he'd actually be a lot more suited to James Bond. There's a certain coldness to his screen persona, doesn't suit Superman at all.
I think that's true, but I don't think that's necessarily on Cavill, and I just think that the right director with the right tone, because you see him in interviews and stuff. But I saw him get an interview recently at some junket, and it was just literally, those 6-minute slots they have, and the guy was like, spoilers, but obviously you die at the end of the movie, and my nephew is absolutely torn up about it, and do you have any words of encouragement? And I was expecting him to be like, well, stick around, all I'll say is I'm at the gym and no spoilers, but, maybe Justice League in 2017 might give him some encouragement. That's the kind of answer I was expecting. And what Cavill said was, well, look, tell him, Superman is in all of us. Superman has been around for 75 years. He'll be around for 75 years more. And ultimately, wherever we think of Superman and where we believe in Superman, Superman exists. And it's not just about whether he's alive at the time or dead at the time. He is more than that. And I was sitting there thinking, Jesus Christ, he just wrote a better Superman movie in 2 minutes than I saw in 2.5 hours. And I think he's capable. I genuinely think he's capable.
I think the reason why he got the role is that he's quite straight. He's kind of like straight as an arrow, and I think that's kind of where you need that straight kind of attitude, like right and wrong.
Yeah.
What
so
heart of gold.
upset me, Chris, was we're only 2 days at the time of recording. We're only a couple of days on from April Fool's Day. Did anyone see the April Fools around
the Miller?
Yeah, but
what
a cool thing to do. Zack Snyder announced that he was. The studio announced as well that he's withdrawn or certain. No, it was Latino Review, which frankly a lot of their articles read like April Fools, but they announced it as an April Fools, and Zack Snyder followed it up with a tweet as well that they thank him for his contribution. They're sorry that Batman vs Superman did not get better received. And he will be replaced on Justice League with a 2-month delay to shooting or a 3-month delay to be replaced by George Miller. And then they were like, April Fools, like we'd be relieved.
Yeah.
That's not a joke. That's cruelty.
That was awful. I was so.
But he won't make part 2. He will not. Place your bets now.
We're locked for part 1 because that starts filming next week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think it literally starts on the 11th. I think.
they could actually fix it. That was the only thing. This won't happen, but they could fix it. They could come out in part 2 and they could go all crisis, and then they could have everyone fix it and sort it, and then the world resets itself and we get a proper light blue overpants wearing loves the world Superman. That could happen.
I kind of wish for it. Chris, I find myself in a position of hoping that Zack Snyder's determination to kill Olsen, to kill Kent, to get Superman in the ground, because he doesn't, as he has said himself, I'm not casting aspersions.
You wanting like Henry Cavill to like start flying around the world to turn back time to make everything magically better again?
That would be even better. That would be even better. But what I'm saying is, I think Zack Snyder's own preference, that he said himself that he can only form the Justice League in the absence of Superman for some reason. He wants Batman to do it. He's killed Lois. He's killed Clark Kent. I kind of hope he leaves Superman in the ground.
Batman is
I kind of hope he leaves Superman in the ground for all of Justice League Part 1, and then the climax cliffhanger.
Well, to be fair, he hasn't killed Lois.
Superman is resurrected, and then he can fuck off, and then whoever's doing Justice League Part 2, someone who actually likes the character will come in and do a kick-ass Return of Superman story.
This is exactly what I'm hoping for.
But by the way, did you obviously we talked briefly about the death of Jimmy Olsen, a character who wasn't even introduced.
No,
like he's introduced in the R-rated cut, but it's like, but originally here's a story. Apparently they wanted like a bigger actor, so they actually went to Jesse Eisenberg for the role. To be kind of like, that's basically what happened. What?
Shut it down, Chris. Shut it down.
Yeah, but that's basically what happened, and then but it was because when it gets to that point where you realise, hang on, we haven't got enough room, you just drop it, wouldn't you? You'd be like, okay, well, that idea didn't work.
Just don't put him in. Yeah.
Can I say one more quick thing about Cavill?
Go on.
Just while we're on the subject. So I was thinking this after the second time I watched it, and I was so angry. I actually enjoyed it more the second time, I think, because I just let go of caring whether it was good. And as I was walking home, I was thinking about it again, and I remember some of the names that were coming up when Man of Steel was casting. And I think Joe Manganiello was one of them, and there were a lot of really kind of strapping, strong men who you couldn't quite imagine being Superman. They were kind of almost like Batman types.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, what would these movies have felt like? What kind of Superman would I have felt like I'd gotten had one of those actors played it? And I think it's a credit to Cavill that, he's terrible. Like, it's all so terrible. But I think Cavill has added 30 or 40% just through his natural blue-eyed earnestness.
Oh,
and if somebody like Joe Manganiello or someone like that had been in it, I think that it would have been way more shocking than... So, not that he's Christopher Reeve by any stretch, but Cavill, I do think, infuses that part with something, and it's pushing against the writing the whole time.
But bear in mind, Matt, like I say, I understand every single criticism of Man of Steel, and even agree with them all to some degree. But when Man of Steel finished, I didn't really like it the first time because I found the action too numbing. I'd lost interest so far before the end, but I went to see it a second time and liked it well enough, and I'm still kind of there with it. And I remember having a conversation with a good friend of mine about it, and he said, well, he isn't Christopher Reeve. He said, but he is Superman to me now. He does inhabit the role enough. And I think that's kind of where I am, or where I was after Man of Steel, and I'm not after this.
Yeah.
There's
there's been a deterioration, not necessarily in Cavill's performance, but any tenuous link to the character.
I mean, it's what Matt said. I'm firstly fine with Cavill. He's not the issue. I don't think any of the cast are the issue. I mean, Affleck's. What do we think of Affleck? Because I kind of felt it was kind of weird. Not like I was blown away by his performance, but he just felt comfortable to me. He felt comfortable in the kind of bat suit and in that role.
I was happy for the moment he was cast.
Yeah,
I was quite happy with that. I think that's a really good choice. More for Bruce Wayne than actually for Batman. Yeah. I'm still kind of happy with it. I think it's I think the reactions, it's like a pendulum. It's gone too far the other way now. I kind of think his characterization's been overpraised, but it's fine. He is far from a problem. I've never really had a problem with Ben Affleck, full stop. He's one of the better things in the film, and I'm perfectly happy with him. But the way they've characterized Batman offends me.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I was completely down with Affleck when he got cast. But I was disappointed with. Again, it's not his performance, not his acting, but the characterization was disappointing.
Yes, Batman is completely, and it's almost pandering to that. Robert and I talked about this on Twitter recently, I think. But there is a subset of Batman fans where Batman has become this kind of Chuck Norris level of invincibility. So while they're criticizing Superman for being too powerful or whatever and not relatable, it's like every argument is like, but he would win because he's Batman. And then they do these little memes. It's like, you can be Batman because he's Batman because he's Batman. He's become a Chuck Norris punchline to a lot of them. And this film almost felt like it was pandering. It's like, we know you like dark. I mean, look how dark he is. He burns a bat into the sides of people's faces. It's so
dark.
It's so dark.
Which is like a death sentence when you get put to jail, which I kind of baffled me. It's like, why? How would that work? Like, why would people actually kill you because you got put there by the Batman? It's not like you were like put there because you snitched on other.
Wouldn't it be cool if? It's all. Wouldn't it be cool if? Wouldn't it be cool if there were bat symbols on the sides of people's faces?
I know. It's just it's just like what? Okay, it's for me. This is little things like this that drag the film down. Like,
can we talk about the grotesque moment that Wonder Woman sits down and watches teaser trailers for future movies?
I was going to say, that is the single worst moment in the film. That is
and Lex Luthor's got like a branding company.
Yes.
That's the worst. That's the worst. And I listened to him on the podcast. He's confirmed that essentially Lex Luthor names Wonder Woman. And in the whole being embarrassed that he's making a comic book movie of all people, I would have thought after 300, at least this guy, anyway, whatever the fuck, he admits in this thing that because he can't seem to conceive a way that Wonder Woman would come up with a name in his mind so cheesy as Wonder Woman that it has to become a code name from the villain. And even in this interview, he laughs about it. I don't know how she got the name otherwise. Really? I mean, go read the comics. I'm sure there's 2 or 3 explanations.
She's a woman and she's wondrous.
Well, the thing so, particularly when we go back to the film where it's going to be set in World War One, that's a lot more believable. Even if it is come across as cheesy, everyone goes like, "Well, it's back in that. She would have been called Wonder Woman." It
Stop
just makes
being
sense.
Embarrassed. Don't be embarrassed by it. Don't be embarrassed by Superman. Don't feel like you don't know how to get it in there. Even in the film, they don't say Batman very much, do they? There's always the Bat of Gotham, the Bat Vigilante. Why are you all so embarrassed by Batman? Just say Batman. It's okay. We're all here because we already love him. We're not going to laugh at you if you say Batman on screen.
Yeah, and Captain America's just done it. You've only got to watch a film that's 5 years old.
I know.
And they did play with the fact that it's propaganda, a bit cheesy, its era.
Yeah.
Kind of made that little sop to it, and then ran with it.
Yeah, that first movie.
He tends to just be referred to as Cap, but he's Captain America.
Yeah.
That first movie is a masterclass, though, in how they have managed to keep
it really is.
the way they, and the more distance I get from it, the more I like it. Like at the time, I liked.
Me too. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. Honestly, if you'd asked me just before the first Avengers film, I would have named Captain America as the worst of Phase 1. Genuinely, and I really like it now.
Yeah, it's so good, and the lines that he says, the whole thing. There's a great moment where he's in there with the German doctor, and he's like, "So you want to kill Nazis or something?"
I just don't like bullies.
I just don't like bullies. And in that moment, the entire audience sighs because we want that. We want that guy. Nobody laughs.
It's the bit where he jumps on the hand grenade for me. That's like,
that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's just
Batman versus Superman does have Superman flying off saying, "No one stays good forever."
Oh, it's the worst line Superman's ever said in live action.
The one that really jarred me, I agree
Superman
that's the
did not
worst
say
line,
that
but
line.
the one that really, really jarred me, and I've said it earlier in the podcast, consider this mercy.
Oh, yes.
And when he flew up, I'm just like, what is... And again, no grace. I mean, even in the Brandon Routh version where you had modern effects, he would float a little.
Yeah.
Here he just steams off like Neo at the end of The Matrix.
Because they're embarrassed by the flying. They're embarrassed by that.
Let's ignore the fact that he just stopped Bruce Wayne from effectively helping the guy who wants to destroy him.
Yes.
Get the crypt and that. I mean, okay, fair enough. He wants to use it to kill him, but it is kind of like, well, the less of the evil.
Superman has no idea what's going on at this point. I mean, he has no idea. He's just steaming in and fucking shit up.
And let's just ignore the fact that let's just plan to we kidnap Martha.
That's the
we
whole
kidnap
thing,
Martha Kent. Like, oh really? Well, I can find out where Lois is, anywhere, within a minute, and come and save her flying off a flaming building. But I don't know where my mum is.
Oh, can we talk about the Martha moment? Let's just get out.
Yeah.
God.
Oh, you want me to? Oh, right. Okay.
It's just
Well,
fucking
you've just
stupid.
asked to talk about it, so
Yeah,
perhaps.
sorry. I was kind of hoping. Right, okay. So the Martha moment for me is offensive on so many levels. It's offensive just in terms of bad writing. Like if Superman and Batman had never existed before these movies, and you were seeing it for the first time, I'd be taken instantly out of it. Like, why is he calling his mum Martha? Why is he not saying my mother or?
Yeah.
It's just so weird. And then the worst part of it is that it's a crucial turn in this movie. It's a crucial turn that let's accept everything the movie is presenting to us as if it's good, even though it's not. But let's say Batman is in the fog of psychosis and possible alcoholism and murderous rage and whatever. He's completely fucked up and he's about to kill this person out of pure rage and kind of psycho cognitive action or whatever. The moment you have when you're sitting in the writer's room is like, okay, so we need a moment where he needs to be jarred out of this fog and he needs to see that the guy he's about to kill isn't some want-to-be God alien, but he's a person with his own worries and dreams and family and everything. How are we going to do this? Hey, guys, I've just noticed that they both have Martha as their name as their mother. Why don't we just somehow bring that up? And it basically becomes a coincidence. So if Clark Kent or Superman, because Clark Kent doesn't exist, if Superman had lay on the floor like that and said, Cindy, they're going to kill Cindy, would Batman have killed him anyway? Because it wasn't like, what? Why did you say that name? Because Batman's reaction, Affleck sells it really well. I mean, talk about selling a turd. But Affleck's reaction is like, why do you know this thing about me? This incredible thing about me? Why would you say that? Give me the context as why you would say that name. And Lois comes in and says it's his mother's name.
Even though she would have no idea what the fuck they're going on about at that point, because literally just ran in.
Sorry, did one of you mention Martha? What's going on?
And also,
Why would we say that? Yeah.
But the problem with that, though, it's sort of like to reiterate it, is that ignoring the fact that Clark Kent, investigative journalist, he sees Bruce Wayne turn up and he says, "Who's that?" Which is just fucking tired. Especially since it appears that these two cities are within spitting distance of each other.
Yeah.
But at this point in the movie, Supes has said to Batman, come on, Bruce, let's calm down. Bruce Wayne knows that Superman somehow knows everything about him. He knows who he is. So for him to suddenly mention his mother's name, he's Bruce fucking Wayne. Everybody knows who he is. Everyone knows who his parents are and what happened to them. For Superman to suddenly mention his mother's name there shouldn't be a big shock. In fact, if anything, it should make him go, don't try and use my mother against me. Stab.
You're dead. Yeah, exactly.
And of course, when they're first introduced as well, Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne. Really? What? So a very wealthy man and some nothing journalist. Why is that? That's not right. That's not Mount
But that's
Rushmore.
because Lex Luthor knows that Clark Kent is Superman at that point, and I think Snyder thinks we'll all pick up on that from the joke about the handshake.
And he knows about Bruce Wayne being Batman as well, I think. Yeah,
but he does nothing with this information because presumably he cares as little about secret identities as
Zack Snyder.
Zack Snyder does. Yeah. But that moment, that Martha moment, I got drawn. There are some DC fanboys out there. I'm here to tell you, they're frightening. And I was talking about this, and I got some shit from them saying like, "Well, this is what humanizes Superman and Batman's eyes." I'm like, I agree that that's what the writers think, but wouldn't it have been better if you had something like, Superman dropping his fist at a certain crucial point where Superman knows that he could either win or is just about to win or just about to lose, but one of those pinch points, and says, Bruce, here we are. And I'm now going to stop fighting at this point because there's shit going down and we can deal with it together and you can take my hand or you can kill me right now and I'm willing to let you. But I have faith that you're not going to do that. I have faith that together we're going to make this world a better place. Not, don't we both have mums? Like, it's so fucking, it's so asinine, it's so shitty. And then Bruce not only does it hit him out of the fog, he completely turns, he throws the spear away, and you man, Martha won't die tonight. You're not
Don't
saving
worry,
your own...
buddy.
Yeah, It's kind of like a meta kind of thing. Like I won't let. It's like
Come on,
really.
that one you shagged in Hollywoodland.
And by the way, that moment is the sum of their interaction because, and for those who haven't seen the Snyder interview in the Empire podcast, Snyder also says that he absolutely cannot get his head around costumed heroes talking to each other in costume. That's why that interaction is so brief. It's as much as his embarrassment could take for them to talk that much. So after that, I failed him in life. After that, I'm a friend of your son's. No, you're not. We've seen no scene to establish that. And maybe the R-rated cut. Maybe the R-rated cut is going to come out and give us a whole moment where they went for milkshakes before they went down with the whole fight and they become blood brothers. But none of it is earned. I mean, when Superman dies, Wonder Woman has said like nothing to him at all. Because he can't abide them actually talking to each other in costume. He can't get his head around it at all.
Yeah.
That's why the art gallery scene exists. That's why the Wonder Woman scene going to steal the data Lex's party exists. It's because Zack Snyder, or Chris Terrio, but based on the interview I'm saying Zack Snyder, doesn't know how to get them to talk to each other in costume, so he manufactured reasons that they didn't need to be in costume. And if you're that embarrassed, don't make these movies, mate.
Yeah.
Good point.
I think, you know what I'm finding interesting, though, is that I think that so many people across the board have really disliked this movie. And I think, like me, it's not simply because, this isn't my Superman, it's not proper Superman. It's because it's a bad movie on so many levels. But everybody, it's like we all understand what Snyder's trying to do, but we just don't think he's achieved it. We think he's done it badly. But everyone has been desperately, ironically, holding on to this idea of hope. It's like Man of Steel came out. Well, we heard about Man of Steel. Zack Snyder's doing it. He did Watchmen and 300. Is he the right guy to do Superman? But we were all hopeful that it would be good. And it wasn't what we wanted. And then this film comes along, and we're thinking, well, we've got Ben Affleck, who's going to be Batman, and we've got these actors, and we've got this source material. And everyone went in hoping it would be good. And the strange thing, which I feel has come out of it now, is that now everybody, it's almost like, because there's nothing of any merit in this movie, but now I feel like people are almost latching onto Gal Gadot, and they're like hopeful that Wonder Woman is going to be good. And you know what? It's not. It's going to be just as bad.
You can't kill my hope. You can't kill my hope.
I mean, to be fair, it isn't going to be made by Zack Snyder, so there is that. You don't know.
It's Justin Marks, I think, wrote the screenplay, and he's getting quite good reviews for his adaptation of Jungle Book at the moment. I saw a few industry reviews have come out for that. And it's directed by Patty Jenkins. I guess what we don't know is what kind of marching orders does she have to fit in with Dawn of Justice and Justice League.
I guess actually I'd split the difference, because I'm not going to sort of sit with Robert and say it's definitely going to be awful. I think what I would say is the hope that's being hung on to for that film is based on, firstly, Wonder Woman being one of the least worst parts of a film. Well, that's not. Don't hang out the bunting yet. And secondly, she's not in it that much. There's not enough to go on here. You're there saying, well, that's going to be really good because she was great in this film. Where was she great in this film? She's hardly in it.
I mean, she has like a moment. There's a bit. I mean, sorry, go on, Robert.
No, it's just that I don't think she's one of the few good parts of the movie.
I didn't say. I said least worst.
Well, yeah, but I think that people are so they're so desperate, and there's so much desire and hope for the Wonder Woman movie to not be bad, that people are coming out of this film saying, "Oh, you know what? We didn't see a lot of her, but what we saw, I quite liked. She smiled twice, so you know."
Yeah, but that's a big thing in this film.
It is a big thing, and to play devil's advocate, I was one of those, and I remain one of those people who's optimistic about her. Now, no, there is not enough material to judge at all. We essentially got a trailer of the Wonder Woman that she could be, so I can't say for sure she is going to be great. But I've seen people in similarly small roles in other films completely fall flat on their face. She does have something. She has a kind of screen charisma that you can diagnose. With the little screen time that she has. She seems very comfortable with action. Yeah. There is a moment, and I know you're going to hit me over the head and say, yeah, it's one moment, but she only has moments, so that's all we're left to work with. But there is a moment when she's fighting with Doomsday where she does kind of smile at the whole, I'm enjoying this, I'm a warrior, and I'm in my groove.
Oh, it's pathetic. It's like so such grasping. She's awful. She's awful. She's awful. She's terrible.
Okay, all right. I mean, I'm kind of with Matt here. I mean, I kind of what we had. I was fine with. I thought some lines went flat for me, but in terms of like when they're fighting Doomsday, I like the kind of fact that she just got stuck in there. She looked the part.
But you're kind of where I am, Chris, that it didn't offend us. We thought bits of it were okay.
Yeah.
But on what basis are we hanging out at the bunting for the saviour of the DC cinematic universe on this?
I can't. All right, I'm not quite hanging out the bunting. All I'm
No,
saying
I know
is,
you're not. I know. I'm not suggesting you are, but there is that out there.
There is that out there, and I do think it is a little bit like, a thirsty man will drink his own piss. So maybe there is a little bit. Maybe there is a little bit of that. But I think. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there is an entirely new creative team. Look, we've had 2 DC movies so far. They've both been. I think Man of Steel looks worse now in retrospect because we can't now give Snyder benefit of the doubt with some of the decisions that were made in that movie. So we've got 2 movies that haven't worked, and now we're heading into Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman. Both of these movies are not directly made by the people who made the last 2. So yes. I'm choosing to be optimistic, if only because it's more fun until I see it.
Yeah.
And not only that, it's a breakwater between this and Justice League Part 1.
Right.
Because frankly,
I fear.
frankly, if Justice League Part 1 was the next film, do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and the fact that they're shooting in 2 weeks. I mean, I can imagine what the atmosphere is going to be like on set.
They lent on that hackneyed old, but this one's for the fans.
Well, look what the fans said in the second
fans
weekend.
Really don't like it.
Yeah. So it's troubling. It is heartbreaking. For the first time that we see these guys together, heartbreaking.
Can I tell you something? Which it sounds absolutely ridiculous when I say it out loud, and so I apologise. But the one effect that this film had on me, which I didn't expect, which I never had from any film whatsoever, was that it actually upset me. And I don't mean in terms of like a deliberate emotional response. I came out of the film feeling upset because, and you can ridicule this as much as you like, there was a line in it that made me cry. It made me so emotionally upset that I had a tear come out of my and then it made me more upset because I kept thinking about how this film had elicited this level of sorrow in me, and I can't forgive it for that.
What was the line?
It's where Clark is talking to Perry, and he's saying that they're a newspaper and they need to stand up for something. Yeah. And Perry says, well, maybe you could stand for something if it was 1938, but it's not 1938.
Yeah. Yes, that was such a pointed disconnection from its own history. Yeah,
deliberate, vicious.
It was deliberate. Yeah, it was like Zack Snyder himself was saying, "Stop hanging on to the past, you cunts.
We're doing something new." Yeah.
But what would have been awesome is if you would have had a response from Superman and saying, well, what mattered in 38 matters now will matter in 50 years' time. Principles don't die, and I'm here to fight forever. And say something awesome and completely rebel against it. But no.
And again, have you seen Captain America? They've done this in the last 5 years.
It's heartbreaking, and it's scary that they should never have announced all those movies without knowing. Man of Steel was not a slam dunk to do this from, but they panicked. And what they should have said is, we're going to do this first, then we'll do an individual Wonder Woman, we'll do an individual Flash. But now you said April 11th, Dave, so we're what, a week? So
they're filming in 8 days.
So there is no, Brett Ratner had more time to parachute into X-Men 3, and look how that turned out. So they're not going to change director.
This film made me miss Brett Ratner. Making these films.
Well, have you read the J.J. Abrams script?
Yes, I have.
Yeah,
it's closer to Superman than this.
What I would say is,
but that's not saying much.
But it actually had some joy in it.
It had some kineticism and some joy, and you can imagine,
and some kung fu fighting.
Yeah.
And some magic suits.
Yes.
Yeah, but that magic suit thing was awful. But it read kind of joyous, and there's no joy in this.
No, there's no joy.
It lacks any passion.
Superman never seems to have fun being.
I mean,
Superman.
I'm so upset I haven't cracked a single dick or fart joke tonight.
I know. I was thinking
And that's
it might.
just not how I roll.
I was thinking it might because you're with two other people that you've not previously spoken to before, so maybe you might be holding back a little bit. Well, you did make a constipated joke, which I suppose towards the beginning, so I suppose that counts.
But I didn't start, musing on his arsehole, did I?
Well, yeah, he wasn't exactly being played by Roger Moore, so I guess.
Roger Moore would have liked this film. Roger Moore should have played Superman.
Roger Moore would have been amazing as Superman.
Consider this mercy.
Oh no, I could see him as being a bit of a Batman, actually.
What? Because he's so gritty.
Yes.
What? No, we need Connery as Batman. We need Roger Moore as Superman now, not in the past.
Pierce Brosnan as Wonder Woman. Because he's kind of a bit metrosexual.
We get Dalton in as the Flash. Sorted. George Lazenby plays Lex.
Appearing to Bruce Wayne in a dream to tell him in a broad Welsh accent, "You were right."
Yeah, but what does that even? Okay, what's the being point in that scene? Okay, there's a few things that I didn't find I thought was pointless. One was that whole Wonder Woman looking at a laptop, looking at preview for Justice League. That was one. That whole Flash scene.
Looking at that.
That whole Flash bit, where it was kind of like meant to think, Bruce Wayne thought it was a dream, but that. Okay, well, obviously that includes to what's going to happen.
Or was it a dream?
No, it wasn't a dream. I mean, I know there was like about 10 dream sequences in this film, but like there was like Flash giving him a message like, "Oh, am I too late? Am I too early? Am I too early?" And so to tell him anyway.
But this is Injustice, right? This is the video. I've not played the video game, but this is
basically Injustice. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the problem. This film seems to take its inspiration from a bad comic based on a bad video game.
Yeah. And again, a version of Superman that isn't a classic version. It's a subversive version, because that's the version they understand.
I mean, it could be the best game and the best comic in the world. The fact is, how many different disjointed things are you going to cram into the one film?
But this is how we know Lois Lane's
What's
in
your
the
vision? I
crosshairs.
mean, I don't, for example, I think The Dark Knight Returns is possibly the most overrated comic book I've ever read. I much prefer stuff like The Long Halloween, but but at least if you made that, fine. At least there's some cohesion to it.
Yeah.
But this is just a mismatch of different shots he thought would look cool.
Yeah.
It's his favourite bits from all the comics.
And his favourite bits are not character beats in any circumstance.
No.
And when they kill off Lois Lane, I am going to kick off. Because this is such an important character.
What the hell was the point in whole engagement ring thing?
Just to make his death even more
he's
tragic.
ordered it off Amazon.
and okay, for starters, like I can understand, but in that a bit of a kick. Or look, I know it's like of Martha Kent coming in, like okay.
I know you're grieving, but you haven't just lost the
but there you are.
have real plans.
But he wants you to have this. Oh, thanks. Oh.
Yeah, that makes me feel better.
Yeah,
it's terrible, and they're going to kill Lois Lane. They're going to. In the dream sequence, he says to Batman, doesn't he? How could you? She was my world. And then when he goes off to his death, he says, "This is my world. You are my world." Unless something changes, they're going to kill Lois Lane. We're going to have a Superman without his supporting cast.
Flash says she's the key, or something like that. I don't understand.
Lois Lane is the key.
The only kind of redeeming feature, and it's what we were talking about, this idea of someone else is going to take over from Snyder, obviously, but potentially if they go down the Injustice avenue, I mean a big part of that story is trying to prevent it, is the characters trying to reverse it.
Maybe Flash might go back and prevent the whole thing even happening, and
exactly. I could just about deal with if the next movie is Injustice, if the next movie after that was a sort of a riff on Crisis, where they basically reset it and he puts some overpants on and John Williams' theme, and we can all go home.
Well, he probably needs some new pants, because he did arrive and say, "I've come too soon," which I think we can all identify with.
Not quite a dick joke, but it's close.
But it's just such a bizarre. Again, that's so crowbarred in, like he's gone. Oops. It's like, what?
It is. It's Amazing Spider-Man 2 pulled this shit, trying to build a universe without building a movie. And they're going to just about get away with it. This movie probably won't crack the billion mark by the looks of things, but it will make enough money.
Something like it's just past Man of Steel, so it's on about 668 now. I've just read.
Yeah. So I think that they can save face financially, but I strongly suspect
China. It's already opened in China and flopped, so it's not even like it's got that.
Oh, I thought it had a record opening in China.
I might have read a different article,
but I think
maybe I've got
in the
confused.
Second week,
might have been a record flop. I don't know, but
I think in the second week
Excuse
there
me,
are
typing,
domestic titles. There are domestic titles that are coming out in China now, which are expected to destroy it, whether it flopped the first time or not. But yeah, But I strongly suspect there are some big meetings going on at Warner Brothers now, and probably a couple of people will lose their job because, you've got no Marvel movie, I don't think, has ever had a rotten status, and no DC movie since Man of Steel, obviously, has had a fresh, and that's a problem for the Prestige studio.
Hang on. Iron Man 2 is the only one I would think would even be close. Maybe The Incredible Hulk, so let me just have a look.
I think one of the Hulks is the lowest rated.
No, Iron Man 2 is on 72%, which does surprise me a little.
That might speak to some goodwill to having an established character and first movie.
I also don't think Iron Man 2 is as horrific as most people do, which if you sort of take maybe us as a cross-section, I guess there are lots of people out there who, like me, also don't think it's that horrific. The Incredible Hulk's on
67%, and I know Thor and Cap are on mid to high 70s. So yeah.
So what's the fresh rating? 60, is it?
60, yeah.
60, yeah. So you got Man of Steel, I think is
56, I believe, without looking.
And then this one, I think, is in the 30s.
It was on 28 last time I looked.
Oh, 28, yeah. All right.
28, 29 last time I looked.
That's going to be a problem with Warner Brothers, especially when so much as that their kind of spin is about filmmaker driven. We're going for something a bit more unique.
Well, the thing is, though, they gave it all to Snyder, and this is what he's produced. So that's what's going to happen. And the problem is now he's fucking with characters that are two iconic characters that people love.
What they want is they want the Dark Knight days back. They want, people being nominated for Oscars, the Oscar category being expanded from 5 to 10 or to the field above 5% of the votes or whatever it was, because there was so much outrage that the Dark Knight should have been nominated. And back then, they were the dick-swinging big boys that were able to say, we've got the huge comic book franchise, but also we've got this prestige, we've got the critical acclaim. And they desperately want that for this new universe. Why they thought they were going to get that with Zack Snyder is amazing. But given that Nolan picked him, maybe he's the one that you need to blame.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's the last thing I'll say on Marvel. The two joint lowest are, and they're joint lowest, Incredible Hulk, Thor: The Dark World, both on 67.
I would say probably Age of Ultron's my least favourite out the...
Age of Ultron is on 75, which is low by Marvel standards, but again...
75's, still...
It's fine, it's solid enough. Captain America, The Winter Soldier's on 89, Guardians is on 91, which is close enough to a wash.
If I were at Warner Brothers right now, I would be doing some old-fashioned talent stealing. I'd be asking Joss Whedon, how tired are you really? I'd be seeing what
let's have a look at that Wonder Woman script.
Looks like for Guardians 3. Because at this point, they've got to do something drastic to pull out this nosedive. And Joss Whedon isn't a particular DC guy, and his work doesn't necessarily speak to DC, but he is the guy who did a pass on Captain America that put in a lot of these touches we've been talking about. He is the guy that I think could write a good Superman story and a good Batman story. I think
what about Jon Favreau?
Why not? Why not? He got the whole ball rolling for those guys. And like I said today, I think Hollywood Reporter reviews come out. The Jungle Book's getting some really good reviews. Why not? I mean, I think that
I just look at Iron Man, and I think, well, there's some quite hard-hitting stuff in that film for a family film. Shrapnel in the heart and a bit of torture and all the rest of it, and the film still comes out looking quite balanced and light in a lot of ways.
Still fun, yeah.
And I just think that's quite difficult to pull off.
Well, the thing is, it's quite a simple story, just sticks to it. Sorry, go on, Robert.
What No, but I think we could come up with a list of great directors who could do amazing things with these characters. And I think the list of directors who could do amazing things with these characters is far, far longer than the list of people that could do worse things with these characters. And there are some directors out there that you would never want to touch Superman. And, Snyder basically now has proved himself to be one of them. But there are so many other options to put these characters, to put your trust in these characters in. And it now comes down
Sidney
to
J.
Warner
Fury
Brothers.
still alive.
But look at the way Marvel found the Russos. Like, how many people would have put the Russos on the list? So I know I've just advocated stealing from Marvel, but also there's got to be something to be said that somebody at Warner Brothers
There was
to be able
nothing in the Russos' record that suggested they were going to produce.
Right, so I assume that they must have come in and done a bit of a pitch. And...
I think it's I think the thing with Marvel is they're quite good at saving their money because they don't want to sort of pay people too much. But I think they're quite good at getting the balance right. They kind of know how we'll give so much to like the freedom of the artists, of the directors, but we kind of we got like a certain template that you need to fit into. So it's like it's kind of it kind of keep like levels
TV
balanced.
show.
I suppose a little bit. I think they've got the goals, the kind of plan on where they're going.
Well, they've got a showrunner, haven't
Yeah.
They got a showrunner, and I think I saw an interview with Feige where he said, look, these movies are extremely technical, and we have some incredibly talented people at Disney who know how to do these things, and they just need a kind of storytelling guidance. We don't need a technical guy. So, and you watch the Avengers movies, you can tell they are Joss Whedon movies. You can tell that Guardians has that kind of James Gunn funk on it as well.
Well, they are subtly in different genres to each other.
Right, but they go for storytellers. And Zack Snyder has never really.
Yeah.
I mean, the first Dawn of the Dead. I mean, his Dawn of the Dead isn't bad, but he's never demonstrated to people. Just go to a storyteller and find out: do you like these characters already, or do you have a take on them? And if you do, I mean, James Gunn is a Marvel and DC nut. You look at his Twitter feed; he loves them both. I mean, they shouldn't be letting these guys go past. Not him specifically, but they should be throwing the doors open and saying, do you love these characters already? Because they clearly didn't ask that of Snyder. I remember seeing an interview with Snyder, must have been 2009, 2010, around the Watchmen release, and him being asked about Superman, and him saying really openly, well, I have no idea how you would get into Superman. I don't know how you make him relevant now. I don't quite know how you come at him. Yeah. Well, now we've got 2 movies to say that he was being truthful.
What concerns me is if DC, they looked at the Russos and went, right, well, that went really well, and they go and get, the director of Bride Wars or something. Because they just think, well, that's the same sort of thing, isn't it? Some crappy rom-com will do that.
But there are people out there who would kill, they'll chew through their own arm for a chance to do Superman. So bring them in, find out what their take is.
Yeah.
Because it's the kind of you've got the Peyton Reeds and you've got the Russo brothers, the people that you would never think of. And I mean, I've got no idea who directed Bride Wars, but we don't. Director of Bride Wars might be the greatest, Superman fan in working in Hollywood.
Right, because the first Peyton, when they named Peyton Reed to come in on Ant-Man, the first film of his I thought of was Down with Love, which is shockingly bad. I mean, it really isn't good. It's got quite a nice visual style to it, but I didn't like that film very much. Apologies if either of you do. But he would not be. I would not expect him to fit into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, despite a slight lightness of touch.
But he was actually a big Ant-Man fan as well, though. I mean, that's
he was, and that's the key. He would have come in and he would have shown that. Adam McKay, who would have thought he would be a good fit for Ant-Man
or anything?
But you look at the same. To go to your Bride Wars example again, I don't know who directed Bride Wars. Presumably David Fincher. I can't remember.
Yeah, Bride Wars. Yeah, I would imagine that.
But you look at The Pallbearer, the David Schwimmer '90s comedy, The Pallbearer, is directed by the same guy who directed Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. You can find these guys and give them a chance. J.J. Abrams did Regarding Henry. I don't think he directed it. I think he just wrote it. But throw your doors open and find out who. Don't just go to the last guy you can think of who made you money on a comic book movie, and that was Zack Snyder. And he didn't even make that much with Watchmen, did he?
No, he didn't. Watchmen only grossed about 150 million worldwide.
Right. So I just think that they need to say, look, do you love the character? You look at something like Iron Giant, which Brad Bird did. That movie stinks of a love of Superman. There are people out there. Give them a chance and find out if they can actually do it. Don't just play it safe. Don't just play the penny pinching game.
So you're telling me she cast Vin Diesel as Superman? Is that what you're saying?
You know what? He was a pretty good he was a pretty good Superman in Iron Giant. Yeah. I mean, I just think that there are ways and means at the moment, and I think that they're at a crucial juncture now. They can't do anything about Justice League. They can't do anything about Wonder Woman. They can't do anything about Suicide Squad, although they seem to be trying. Going forward, I think they need to be bolder, and I really would be calling up Joss Whedon and saying, "Yeah, you keep saying you're tired. When you finish with your latest funny book,
have a kit for Christ's sake."
Yeah.
Justice League Part 2, the person they want to go to is Richard Donner.
I would love that, but how old is he now?
By the time that's getting ready to shoot, he'll be late 80s.
Yeah,
easy.
He's
yeah, but come on, if George Miller can do Mad Max Fury Road, I'm pretty sure Dick Donner can actually just sit in the chair.
If they announced him, I would not be disappointed.
No, I wouldn't either.
Yeah.
But
Man of Steel
Fury
2
did the last classic Christopher Reeve entry.
Yeah, but how old's he?
Sidney, I don't even know if he's still alive.
Richard Donner, by the way, is 85 years old.
That's what I was saying. I'm sure he was born in 1930.
Yeah, 1930, yeah.
Still with it. He can still do it.
Yeah.
Joe Dante.
Murray Walker, if we're going to go old.
Murray Walker.
I need to go between these two titans.
Hang on, I'm sure he's not still alive.
Murray Walker's still alive.
He's not, is he?
Yes, he is. About
Are you sure?
Yeah, no, he's signed up by Channel 4. He's still doing interviews and stuff.
Sorry, Murray. Value your work.
Yeah, because we've already got the Queen, Roger Moore, Art Malik, and who else listening to this?
Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson. They listen to every podcast we do. At the same location, they meet up. And to that we can add Murray Walker.
Bit of inside joke there. So
they all like a good Roger, don't they, Chris?
Anyway, so closing thoughts on Batman v Superman. Do we like the film? I get the feeling that it's kind of divided.
I think it barely functions as a film. I was so shocked. I was expecting to go and be disappointed. I didn't expect good. I would have taken Amazing Spider-Man 2 bad compared to what we got.
I kind of like Amazing Spider-Man 2. But anyway,
I know.
Yeah, I know, but...
No, but I mean, even that, with all its flaws, it's kind of vaguely hung together as a film compared to this.
Yeah.
There's just no connective tissue from one scene to the next, and the characters are just not the characters. So there's just nothing to recommend it.
Yeah, okay. Matt?
And my opinion of it diminishes by the day. Any time I hear anybody talking about it, it reminds me of things in the movie, I start to feel angry. I tweeted the other day, and I stand by it, DC fanboys, that Zack Snyder is to Superman what Joel Schumacher was to Batman. And we may have lost Superman for a generation, and I'm angry about that. So I'm angry about it in terms of the characters themselves and the universe, and I'm angry about it just as a standalone movie. Just to be judged as a movie in of itself.
And fully, if you had me Henry Cavill, I'd be pretty angry as well, personally. But I'd be like, why do my films suck?
Yeah, I feel for him, I do.
But, yeah. And, Robert, you're a big fan, I know. Come on, you were going to...
At least it was redeemed by Wonder Woman, wasn't it, Rob?
that amazing performance by Gal Gadot.
Hey, I believed she was on a plane.
Why are you doing a Brando impression?
Because she's
well, that's basically what she was doing.
Talent for a generation.
This, you know what? This movie and Zack Snyder, they basically are to Superman what Kryptonite is to Superman.
Mild inconvenience, then.
Absolutely.
Do you know, in an alternative universe, this should kill Zack Snyder's career. This is so bad it should kill Zack Snyder's career. But it was strong enough out of the gate, and it might just sneak past $1 billion.
It's a face-saving amount of money for sure.
Yes. But
very
this film
just.
should have done Force Awakens money.
Can you imagine 15 years ago saying that? Sorry to sidetrack, Chris, but just quickly, when Marvel they had to pimp out the X-Men, they had to sell Spider-Man, they had to
I'm
sell
not sure
Fantastic
they pimped out the X-Men.
but they had to sell off the family silver.
Yes, they did.
They had all these kind of legal boundaries into making their own movies, and Warner Brothers had DC Comics and sat on their hands for so long. How is it that Marvel has somehow managed to exploit, to use a corporate word, exploit this catalogue of characters, make people who in the mainstream were secondary characters compared to Spider-Man and X-Men and Fantastic Four into primary, so to such a degree that even Sony have to rent Spider-Man back to save their own face? And all this time, Warner Brothers have failed with Green Lantern. They've only really managed to get Batman right for a generation. Arguably, I know you don't like the movies themselves, but in terms of critical and fan response, it's a shocking case of mismanagement for the studio to be in this position where they're playing catch up when they had such a head start. They had everything.
They were the first studio to create a shared universe. They created what is the most successful comic book movie of all time. They had so much to build on.
Yeah, it's shocking.
Anyway, well, surprise, I didn't entirely hate the film, but again, like I said before, I can't really defend it that well because I didn't think it was a particularly great film. It kind of, like you say, Matt, when I walk out the film, I kind of go, yeah, well, it's all right. But then the more you think about things, the more you think, hang on, no, that doesn't work. No, hang on, no. It's shit, isn't it? I mean, it's... I mean, the problem here is the writing in Schneider. I mean, I don't want to feel anything for anyone. It's kind of it feels kind of numb, and I don't really feel, optimistic. And the key thing is they never nail Superman, which is fundamental to Man of Steel and fundamental to this film. It just falls flat on its face, and yeah, I think it's just made by someone who just doesn't really get comics, much as J.J. Abrams did not get Star Trek. But at least he did a better job of it, at least. So yeah, I'm not as down as you guys are, but yeah, no, I can't really. I'm going to sort of do a Terminator Genesis on you.
I've got to kind of finish where I started. That Man of Steel, for all its faults, I didn't come out of it. If you'd said to me, right, we're doing Man of Steel next, and that's out in a couple of years' time, I'd have been okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I came out of Man of Steel.
Oh my god, they can't get this guy off Justice League in time.
Yeah, I mean,
he has screwed the pooch, and I think he's completely screwed any chance of this universe working.
I mean, I walked out of Man of Steel going oh, okay, well, I think the next film will probably will
address them.
Yeah, because
but they're robbed of Wrath of Khan. They are robbed of the opportunity. So the motion picture comes out. It makes Star Trek. The motion picture comes out. It makes a ton of money. Yeah, but the fans say, "Great, but where are the characters we love very much?" And the critics say, "Great, where's the TV show that we remember?" And so they were able to say, "Okay, let's go to this novelist who's directed one movie. Let's remove Gene Roddenberry from direct writing duties. Let's see what they can come up with." They pared down the budget, and Wrath of Khan comes out, and it is probably the reason why Star Trek exists in any form that we know it today. And they don't. Thank you. And they don't have time. They don't have time to do that now because April 11th. They don't have their Wrath of Khan movie. They've got Robert Wise back for Star Trek 2. Robert Wise is a genius, by the way. I don't mean to slag him off. God rest his soul.
But he wasn't right for that.
But he wasn't right for Star Trek now. And even if I can admire that movie on its own, it wasn't what I wanted from Star Trek, or what people wanted from Star Trek.
It doesn't lend itself to a franchise.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if you quite enjoyed the motion picture. Absolutely.
But,
and of course, the motion picture was the first Star Trek, aside from the animated series, for 10 years. And the original series hadn't been a notable success, so yeah, it certainly could have gone away and never come back.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, it'll be interesting to see what, the new Star Trek TV show will be like.
Oh, I can't wait.
But I do get a spidey sense, should we say, about this oncoming film will be the last of the films, I think.
I hope it is.
I just have a feeling that no one cares.
What, you mean last Star Trek movie ever?
No.
The last of this incarnation.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think it will. I think haven't they already signed Pine and Quinto up again as part of
Have
their?
they?
Yes, and on that same logic, I'm looking forward to the Fantastic Four sequels.
But I don't think Star Trek Beyond will have been budgeted and marketed to such an inflated degree that it won't at least be a stable offering. I mean,
I think they cut the budget after the last one because it didn't do as well as they wanted it to.
yeah,
So
that's actually probably a good thing. I think Beyond needs some kind of refocus after Instartness. But anyway, I know this isn't the Star Trek podcast. I just wanted to use that as a parallel. They don't have time to learn the same lessons in the same way as Star Trek did back then.
No,
Well,
three ago.
So. Well, from lessons as before, it's if you think 3 years. I mean, like I think back to Spectre. You think 3 years would have produced a decent script, but no, it doesn't always work that way. But then sometimes in some cases where they turn
Hang on a
around.
minute, though. Don't forget, Skyfall was a massive success in Bond terms, so they weren't having to correct anything.
Well, no, but in terms of speed, I mean, like sometimes like.
We're still left after 3 years with the scripts a bit under.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people are happy with X-Men First Class, but that was written and shot in like a ridiculous
Yeah,
short
you
amount
can see
of
it
time.
in the effects. That's got some ropey effects in it because it was such a rush.
Yeah, but as a film, it's still
It works for me. Yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of like how it's not too much of a stretch of imagination. Sometimes it's not always about time, and sometimes they can overthink it and over-egg the pudding, and it's other factors in making a film.
What worry? I mean, again, I don't want to almost restart the podcast, but when we go back to Comic-Con when it was announced,
Let's do another 2 hours, Scott.
No, but they did announce it. I've got to go in a minute, but they did announce this film. But after that, there were strong rumours that they were still considering Christian Bale. They were considering having the John Blake character that succeeded him. They didn't actually have a vision beyond, and we're going to say it again. Wouldn't it be cool?
Yeah, it'd be cool.
That was the entire basis.
Wouldn't it be cool to have a Justice League film? Anyway,
Actually, I think outside of animation or a comic book, I'm not desperate to see it. To be honest.
As a sucker that I am, I'm only out of pure curiosity.
Oh no, I'll go to the next one. I don't know that I'll watch this again because I don't really want to. But take me a year from the frustrations of this, and maybe it'll be. I'll give it a quick look before I go and see Justice League. I don't know. I'll go and see it. I will, but if only because there'll be a part 2, and I don't think it'll have Zack Snyder involved.
We can hope.
But there's an alternate universe where this killed his career, and I can only hope that's this universe.
Is that the universe the Flash came from?
Yes.
Yeah, with the Prime Universe.
Yeah.
Oh well.
We're getting deeper and deeper now. What if we're not? Dave.
Is George Reeves still alive in this universe?
Dave.
George Reeves, Noel Neal, the hit of 2017.
So, Dave, tell us where we can find you on the Tinterweb or...
Well, you can normally find me podcasting with Chris at Do You Expect Us to Talk, which is, it's currently a James Bond retrospective podcast, but it's going to carry on when we finish with that, because we're just about to start Brosnan, and when we finish with that, we'll go on to Indiana Jones, and then we're going to cover all the Star Trek films, and we've got ideas, but that'll cover this year.
Yeah. Got enough on a plate yet. So.
Yeah. The Twitter handle for that is at Expect Us to Talk, and we are facebook.com/Expect Us to Talk. You can find me on Twitter at ThePastyKid1976.
And Matt, can we find you on Twitter?
You can find me on Twitter at Eyes Skyward. You can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/The Eyes Skyward. Instagram, also The Eyes Skyward. And any open burger places in London, I'll probably be outside one of those. So and I've got a website, www.eyeskyward.com.
Open burger places? Is that like a burger van?
www.cholesterol9.0.
Yeah, I'm a healthy man. That's where I am on interwebs.
Okay. And Robert?
Yeah, well, on Twitter I'm 4Ducks. And I'm sure people will enjoy hearing me rant about many Superman-y things. And I'm actually doing a little bit of writing on the Digital Fix as well, which is thedigitalfix.com. if you want to check out my reviews of, I don't know, stuff like Supergirl, then that's a place to ping across and read up on that.
Ooh.
Are you liking Supergirl? Just a quick question.
I am liking Supergirl, yeah.
Okay. I've only watched like one episode, so I can't really...
Yeah, I've only got the pilot to go off, really.
I didn't watch the pilot, but...
Very nice. It'll be very interesting when, technically, I have watched the episodes that came out around the time of Batman vs. Superman. There's some really interesting stuff in those. So I look forward to people catching up.
Yeah.
Well, would it... the same week you had the you had the Flash crossover episode.
Would it make sense if Warner Brothers like integrated the TV shows into the cinematic universe, kind of like what Marvel have done?
I think they're going for a multiverse angle on it.
It is a multiverse. Yeah.
Just confused shit.
That all of these films and all of these TV shows and all of these cartoons exist in the same place, and we can pick whichever is our favourite as the Prime Universe. So it's all good.
So the Prime Universe is Christopher Reeve.
Good night, folks.
And on that note, you can find me at Cinematronix on Twitter, and the website where you listen to this podcast from is cinematronix.co.uk, where you can find also, like Dave said, Do You Expect Us to Talk, where we are talking about the Bond films, and then we'll continue on with other stuff. So, yes, and so thank you guys, thank you for joining me for 2 hours of rant. But I thought it was good. I thought it was a good, healthy discussion more than like just going, it's shit!
Well, we did. We just used bigger words because we've had an education.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Shite. We went for put an E on the end.
Yes. But it was good. So so cheers, guys, and thanks for listening.
Thank you. Thanks, man. Cheers.
Bye bye.
Okay.
Bye.